Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to my review of the Tops USMC Combat Knife. You're at the We All Juggle Knives channel. Alright, as you can see, this has micarta handle scales, a true full tang and an extended tang. The blade length is 8 inches. The steel is 1095 high carbon steel, made in the USA. Lacy Sabot is a famous knife designer who also has extensive experience in law enforcement, the military, and martial arts. Here's a closer look at the knife. It has red and white liners. You see the basher pommel. It's a very thick knife. It's a 1/4 inch thick. It's got a divot on the handle there. And you see it's got integral guards. A lot of room on that handle. I wear a large size glove. This will accommodate XL or XXL sized hands as well. It's a combo edge. So the idea of this knife is that it's kind of like a K-Bar USMC on steroids. It's a little bit longer, it is thicker, and it has a true full tang, right? But it is also a military clip point. I'm going to be reviewing this as a soldier's field knife. Going to do a lot of things with it. All right, first task, cutting some paracord. I figure this is definitely something a soldier in the field might be cutting some paracord, so there it is. Now this is a combo edge blade. Normally I just like a plain edge, right? But a lot of military knives, they're going to be combo edge because they think you might have to like saw through. All right, so you see the plain edge part is doing very well on the paracord. There you go. Let's try out those serrations. They are not jagged. Note how they've done them, right? Will they work? What do you think? Yes. Yes, they do. The serrations are quite sharp. You know, like I said, I prefer just a regular plain edge, but I understand what they're going for there. I'm going to do some stuff with this knife that I wouldn't normally do with like a bushcraft or camp knife. All right, as you can see, those serrations they slice through just as well as the plain edge. All right, here is making some kindling. Now, this is not necessarily a soldier task, but it does just show the knife getting pounded on. It just shows like toughness of a knife. And I think I think soldiers want a tough knife, right? I've actually owned this knife for many years. I did like a show and tell video with this many years ago, but I figured I want to review it because, well, basically I've been talking to more soldiers and trying to get an idea, like, what they do with their knives, because I'm used to reviewing more like bushcraft or camp knives. But we can get it done. The price on this, I checked just today when I'm narrating this. The lowest price I found on Amazon was $162. So yeah, pretty expensive, but I mean, made in the USA. All the people who complain about China, I expect positive comments for a USA-made knife. Put your money where your mouth is, unless you only come to life to complain. All right, so there you go. It made some kindling. What next? All right. You're in combat. You just threw your enemy down, and you're stabbing a knife through their face. How will this do? All right, well, there you go. It's hard to tell, how hard someone is stabbing, but I planted this in that log hard enough that I can pick up the whole log with it dangling off the tip, and it won't fall. Witness. All right, so could you terminate an insurgent in hand-to-hand combat with this knife? I think it would go right through their frickin' face. Okay, here it is. This is just because, even though this is kind of like a sharpened pry bar, it is also a knife, and I did want to put some wear and tear on the edge, so there I am just removing some bark from the end of that branch. Now in the text description box, speaking of USA, I'm going to include some of my top picks from Tops Knives. I like Tops Knives. They are pricey, but a lot of them are worth it. I mean, hey, sometimes you got to pay for quality. All right, here's another activity, digging. I've heard from many Vietnam vets. I always ask them how they use their knives. They told me they used knives and bayonets to dig. I was like, well, see, the thing about digging is you can hit a rock and it can mess up your blade, but I guess in an emergency, I mean, that's what they told me. They dug with their knives, so there you go. I found a rock. All right, so that's just one thing that I normally wouldn't do, but for a military knife, I will do. Here's another thing you could do. You can hammer things with the pommel. You can also hammer it through an enemy's skull if you get tired of putting the friggin' tip through. You can also hammer with the flat of the blade, especially, a heavy blade like this. And again, I don't normally do that, but soldiers will use knives in ways that you may have not imagined. Another thing the soldiers told me is that they opened crates. They opened crates with their knives. Well, they say you're never supposed to pry with a knife, but they didn't get the memo and they didn't give a crap. A lot of Vietnam vets have told me that, like, my dad's a Vietnam vet. So there I am. I don't have a crate, but that palette is going to, symbolize a crate. And I didn't go too crazy with it, but there you go. You could pry with this if you had to. I suppose it depends what's in the crate. You want to risk your knife. All right, here I am drawing it down a piece of wood. Now, because this has a combo edge, I'm using a section of the edge that is farther towards the tip than I usually would, providing less leverage for this task. Now, fortunately, you're all doing your push-ups and your pull-ups, so you don't need that much leverage, do you? I hope not. All right, what are we making? We're making a punji steak. Now, we're making a toothpick. You'll see. I saw a commercial the other day for Rice Krispie treats, and this little boy, his daddy wrote words of encouragement on his Rice Krispie treat because the little boy was joining a ballet class, and he needed to find his inner strength to be the best little ballet dancer he could be. All right. Well, if you don't want your son to become the world's greatest ballet dancer, maybe explain to him why we still need knives that are more than capable of dispatching an enemy in anger. And I had a friend in the Marines who was actually on YouTube who had to use his knife, and he came out on top. He had to use his knife in combat. He never made a video about it. I just knew because I was friends with him behind the scenes. All right, that's how you know he's not bullshitting, because he didn't brag about it. But it happens, people. All right, see, there's my toothpick, right? Except it's for picking someone else's teeth. All right, now here's the sheath. This is kind of disappointing, but I show you the good and the bad on this channel. It's MOLLE compatible. It's got a tie down. It's got a belt loop. It's got 2 retaining straps. It has an external pocket with a buckle closure, you see there. And that it came with like one of those flat tops, signal whistles was in there originally. Now, you see that plastic insert, right? It's not at all, it's too wide. It's not at all fitted to the shape of the blade, right? And it's got Velcro on those, which is kind of loud. So the sheath is just disappointing. It's too wide, it's too bulky, and also it's a lot longer than it needs to be, right? So it's just, that's the biggest complaint that most people say about this knife, is that they didn't like the sheath that it comes with. Now, I got mine many years ago, so I don't know what sheath it comes with now, but if it still comes with that, I'd say have your own sheath made or make your own sheath, because that sheath was not very good. All right, final thoughts on this Tops USMC. It's definitely thick. It's definitely tough. Kind of a sharpened pry bar. It has a lot of reach, and it's very stabby. It's not going to be slicing off any limbs, but it'll definitely pierce an upper torso or skull, which hopefully you won't need to do. I do think the guards look a little bit unfinished, but that's merely a cosmetic thing, but I do note it. So really, it's a good knife. It's a tough knife, kind of like a survival knife or a military field knife. We already mentioned the sheath. So have a sheath made for it. A lot of my subscribers can make a sheath anyway. But yeah, I like the full tank construction. It's tough. And I do recommend it if you need a soldier's field knife that's virtually indestructible for its size. Alright, check out all the links in the text description box. I'll include other Tops knives that you might want, including bushcraft ones. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hope you enjoyed the video. This has been We All Juggle Knives. I'm out.